I started to squirm in my seat after she said Cory Booker, and then we had a couple more points, and then she follows up with Chuck Schumer. And I'm sitting here in my head, I'm like, oh, God.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to our latest Trade to Black podcast. End of the week, and some people frustrated within the cannabis space because it's Groundhog's Day, it appears. It's further delays. Let's bring in the gents. Benjamin A. Smith, lead financial writer. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you guys.
Anthony Farrell, good to see you. How was the week?
It's good. It's good. Everybody's hair on fire. It's amusing, to say the least. You kind of got to laugh at this point. I mean, if you're taking this too seriously now, it's just brain damage.
Yeah.
It is what it is, unfortunately.
All right, that's it. We'll wrap things up. Thanks for chiming in. We'll see you, and subscribe and leave your comment below.
Yeah, fuck it. We're done. I'm going golfing.
Fuck.
What did Bill O'Reilly once say? Fuck it, we're going live.
Fuck it, we're going live.
That, and then the other goat clip is Dan Marino doing a Carnival Cruise ad, and he does it and he goes, "Fuck it, send it in." It's that and Bill O'Reilly. I still send those memes to like a couple of my friends like on the weekly basis. Yeah. They're like running jokes.
Oh, that Bill O'Reilly one is legend. Fucking thing sucks.
That, and then the other one is Jim Rome. What was it? He was calling that guy Chris.
Oh, Chris Everett. Jim Everett.
Yeah.
Quarterback of the Rams.
He said, "Call me Chris one more fucking time."
Yeah. That was good.
Goes, okay, Chris. Okay, Chris. Flips the table.
All views of the Trade of Black podcast. Hold on. All views of the Trade of Black podcast, the guests of this podcast, are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or our guests, Ben and Anthony, as investment advice. The views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. All right. People pretty much know what we're going to talk about. Latest blow to the prospects of expedited Safe Banking Act passage. A lead cannabis lobbyist has indicated that a key markup vote will not transpire before the congressional summer recess. And a tweet by Don Murphy served as a wet blanket to investors, needless to say. So I guess we'll begin. Not much to say here. We can't say as we're surprised. What's this mean for investors in the industry, Ben?
Well, I'm not going to overturn any tables there, like what happened, the Jim Rome thing that we were just talking about. But I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Don Murphy delivered the bad news. Basically, it's not going for a markup vote, which is the vote that goes to the Senate Banking Committee, that if it's approved, then it would go to the Senate if it gets a majority vote. And that's not happening. And that's very disappointing because I think under the hood, there's been a lot of indications that the bill is already filibuster proof right now. Now, I guess they need more proof of that. I guess they need like another Republican co-sponsor to make it 9 to go along with the 51 Democrat senators plus 49 plus 2 independents that caucus with the Democrats. And that would give it 60. And I guess they want proof of that. I think we're pretty confident that it has more than those 9 Republican votes to make it filibuster proof already. So one has to wonder whether, Democrats are playing games, whether Sherrod Brown is playing games. And here we go again. Like it's a different year, a different time, but it's always another excuse. And this time it's Section 10. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, we just have to suffer through idiocy in the Congress.
Idiocy indeed, right, Anthony?
Yeah. I mean, we're here again. We're back. We're back here again.
Hello.
I don't really know what to say. I mean, I think there's one thing that is important when you look at this. SAFE not passing does not fundamentally change any of the businesses that are currently operating in these markets. They're still going to march forward. They're still growing revenue. The market is still moving. You've still got these markets like Maryland, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia. Like, you've got these markets coming online. Michigan is starting to get back into equilibrium. Like, yeah, this sucks. But if there's going to be all of these investors that are selling off because they think SAFE not passing right now is some sort of nail in the coffin, sure. If MSOS taps like $3 or $4 and stuff gets crazy, I will back up a fucking truck and buy it. Like, there's no fundamental change. We're at the mercy of these politicians. Rescheduling, descheduling could also come somewhere within the next year. Not saying I would bank on that either, really. But nothing fundamentally has really changed for me, and I'm still going to stick to my guns and say I'll miss the first move to the upside and just show me something once pen gets to paper.
But that's
Because what I don't
ultimately
want to
what the
do is get
problem is, Anthony. Nothing
yeah,
fundamentally has changed. So while you can, that's, that language sounds sort of soothing to some people that, nothing drastic, not a material bad event hasn't occurred and things are just
it
progressing like
sucks.
they always were.
Yeah.
We need this change, and the
I know we
fact that
need
they're
it.
delaying it, it's such a layup right now too. There's 8 co-sponsors, one away from like officially filibuster proof, and we already know it's already there, and yet they still can't do this. So it's like
This
I
is
don't
just
even know
pure
what to say at this
fuckery.
point. I thought either SAFE or Becerra would happen. The
No.
rescheduling ruling, I don't even know anymore. I really don't. It just everything
So what do
just
we look at
disappoints.
timeline wise now? What do we look at timeline? What's the next steps?
I've been seeing people on Twitter that I follow that I value a lot of the stuff that they say, saying don't bet on anything happening before September of next year.
September
Potentially.
2024.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you had Boris come out and say, look for momentum in February. I mean, we're at the mercy of a lot of fuckery right now between both of these parties. They are playing games. Like it's clear and evident that they are playing games. This whole be nice to your politician thing, like I'll throw that out the window. Us being nice is not going to change just the tomfoolery that's going on in Washington. And unfortunately, right now we are at the mercy of that.
Ben,
Um,
calculated, reserved as far as, certain things that people are doing as far as, well, plain and simple. Before we started this podcast, you were extremely frustrated with the fuckery that's going on in Washington. Maybe explain into detail as to like how much of a mess this is and why it's completely frustrating to your point.
It's simply a mess because there's no progress on federal reform, and it's been 10 years, over 10 years now, that safe banking has been introduced. It was introduced originally in 2013, and here we are again. And unlike other times, in recent times, like the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, where safe banking was introduced as an amendment to that. But it was an unrelated bill. So people could see why it probably wouldn't pass in that. It's not, it's sort of a peripheral sort of item. So, okay, fine. But now it gets fast tracked a couple months ago. The Senate Banking Committee hears it on a fast track basis. And like I just said, it probably has enough votes to be filibuster proof. And now it won't go through committee until there's concrete evidence of, I guess, another Republican co-sponsor. So
Yeah.
it's important to note that it could still happen. It's not like
Yeah.
it's dead, and that's sort of the good news. But
It's
everybody
not
was
dead.
hoping that it would be sort of fast tracked, and at least a markup vote would take place, so that it was ready to go in the Senate when they came back from the recess. And now it still has to get through committee. It's stuck there. And just one other thing I'll mention too, as sort of a ray of hope, is that I think with the Becerra ruling, I think we're going to have a ruling, in my opinion, probably this year or early next year. Now we'll get the ruling. Doesn't mean that cannabis would be rescheduled, but I think it would make sense if they want to, put that out there. And I don't think it would actually get rescheduled if it were set to like Schedule 3 or recommended till like 2025. But at least there's that news of catalyst that maybe a Schedule 3 is coming down the pike at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ben's got a really good point there, because really what we're all getting hyped up about right now is the fact that SAFE is not hitting the best case scenario, or the best possible outcome, which was getting fast tracked and getting momentum right now before the summer recess. It's not dead. It's still got plenty of legs. It's just the time horizon has shifted out.
Yeah.
Granted, if we're sitting here in December having the same conversation going into 2024, then it's just the fact of the goalposts are going to just move to infinity. And then it's getting crazy. But
I've never seen the goalpost move like this. Yeah. And,
no, but I mean,
you're
if you
right.
want
Don
to be
Murphy
glass,
did say that another co-sponsor, he's almost has another co-sponsor ready to sign up.
yeah, I mean, if you want to be glass half full versus glass half empty, we didn't get the best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really thought about that until Ben just made his point. But I mean, it's not. We still got some bullets to fire. There's still
Yeah.
some bullets in the chamber that we can get lucky and hit.
Interesting podcast we're actually posting later this week. We had a conversation late last week with a lobbyist from Washington pertaining to the psychedelic industry. And our boys, Cory Booker and Chuck Schumer, are at the head of the psychedelic movement. So just when you think things can get frustrating in cannabis.
Are you serious, Shad? They're at the head of this movement too. They're the tip of the spear of the psychedelics.
Yeah, we asked the question.
Well.
I asked who are some of the notable names in Congress that you're speaking with? And her eyes lit up, and it was like, yeah, we're actually speaking to Cory Booker. And Anthony and I just went.
You could tell on Shad and I's face during the interview. I started to squirm in my seat after she said Cory Booker, and then we had a couple more points, and then she follows up with Chuck Schumer. And I'm sitting here in my head, I'm like, oh God. I'm like, you're really going to tell me that the same people that we're dealing with right now are the same ones?
They're blown away though by the data, and that's the biggest difference between the industry is the data pertaining to veterans. And you said it best, Anthony, that as much as you have a lot of executives with these companies talking about the medicinal benefits of cannabis, this is definitely a recreational play. And that's where I think a lot of politicians were misled from the beginning, so they don't want to feel as burned. But at the end of the day, what's the most compelling thing to sell? It's data. And the data, as we've seen so far, has been really strong, which actually makes me want to segue into our next topic. This is interesting. Year over year, Spravato revenues grew 93.2% and 98.5% respectively. Huge. Sales comparatively accelerated over the past quarter, with the drug's Q2 2023 year over year growth rate above of the previous 6 months, reporting 93.1% worldwide sales growth. Overall, as I read this further, Spravato's growth was by far the strongest in Johnson & Johnson's neuroscience portfolio, easily topping Concerta growth on a worldwide basis of 28.6%. These are some staggering numbers, aren't they, Ben?
Yeah, they certainly are. And especially when you put in the context of Spravato sales being very, very slow to begin with. It was originally approved, I believe, in March of 2029. And commercialization happened that year. And sales were really, really bad, actually. It was expected, some analysts thought it was going to be a blockbuster drug. But the uptake never really had a good uptake with consumers because they had to go to the clinic. It wasn't like a traditional SSRI where you could just take it home, like pop a pill or 2 or 3 pills a day and then go about your day. You're stuck in a clinic, and then it had some side effects that weren't great. So slow uptake, but now things are turning around, and it looks like that growth is, like you said, by far the most in J&J's neuroscience portfolio, like 3x plus by far. And it looks like the uptake is here, and that the potential of the drug is finally starting to materialize. I don't know whether the acceptance of psychedelics, or even though this is like a quasi psychedelic, would and people, the acceptance of going to the clinic is what's responsible for it, or what. They didn't really elucidate the numbers, but it's definitely good to see, and good for J&J.
Okay, so J&J's doing very well. Spravato's looking great from a product market fit and I guess a proof of concept standpoint with consumers. But does that mean that J&J now goes on defense? Not saying they want to block other compounds from coming into the market, but now do they need to kind of put a moat around psychedelics and kind of in their own self-interest slow down the progress of other compounds to kind of insulate and keep that growth coming for Spravato? I think that's something that could be pretty interesting, especially when you look at J&J's horsepower.
What do you mean?
And their lobbying.
Elaborate on that a little bit.
Think about it. If you're J&J, Spravato is obviously showing efficacy, and it's being used by patients for the same things that potentially MDMA, psilocybin can be coming down the pipe. Why would you not, via your lobbying efforts, try to slow down the velocity of those other compounds coming into market so you can just keep flooding the market with your esketamine and with Spravato? I mean, from a business standpoint, it makes sense. Not saying it's going to happen, but I mean, I think it'd be interesting to see how the conversation starts to shape up, because you could be damn sure that J&J has a lot of high-powered lobbyists sitting in Washington that are in a lot of these conversations.
I wonder what they could do though, because like other companies can bring their own compounds and test it for their own indications. So
Yeah,
they wouldn't really have any control of that. But maybe like other esketamine or ketamine sort of drugs or compounds. And I know J&J also depends on the clinic providers to get this drug out.
yeah,
They're not in the clinic business themselves, so they're sort of dependent on like the Numinuses of the world, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, they have a high insurance payment rate from Spravato, higher than a lot of other companies. So they're relying on the Numinuses of the world to get this drug out. But it's a very interesting point you make. I wonder if they're going to block like other ketamine based or try to anyway, ketamine based drugs.
Well, one compound at a time is what that lobbyist said, right? And when you've got a phase 3 trial with MDMA that's about to be announced, that's one. But then you look at esketamine with Awaken Life Sciences, but they've partnered with the NHS, which is equivalent to the FDA. And Anthony Tennyson was explaining to me, actually, and we're going to have that out later this week too. The NHS has an annual budget of $280 billion. And this is a phase 3 trial that Awaken is partnering up with them. They got for $1 million. And usually a phase 3 trial averages between $50 and $100 million. I don't think that phase 3 trial gets enough attention. We've had these conversations in the past, Ben, how some of the compelling data, just people don't really understand what's behind all this and the significance of it all.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I like Awaken. I keep it on my portfolio tracker. It doesn't have a lot of volume on the capital market side, and it doesn't have tons of interest right now. I think people have more geared towards some of the bigger names like Compass and Atai. However, like you mentioned, I really like their affiliation with the NHS. They recently divested some of their clinic assets in the UK to focus more on drug development and IP, and I think that's a smart strategy. But foremost, if they're successful in their phase 3 trial, which a lot of it's getting funded, it's actually not cost them all that much. Then you could potentially see these treatments in all these NHS facilities throughout the country. And just imagine how big that would be. And obviously, that's all going to be insurance based coverage and things like that. So I mean, the potential is there. Maybe as time goes on, investors will get a little bit more focused on this stock.
I think what you're starting to see more and more, like Awaken divesting their clinics. Some of the conversation we had earlier this week with Peyton Nyquist, kind of alluding to maybe selling some of their cash burning assets and focusing on the clinical model. I think what you're starting to see in this next little, turn with the industry is a lot of these companies were doing, a little bit of a lot of things, and now it's becoming more clear as to what companies that are going to last. What they're going to focus primarily on is what you're seeing more and more of, right, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, and I think I don't want to say it kind of is a trend that you see in the small cap capital markets.
Yeah.
But I mean, you see companies that come out swinging when they first go public or when these industries start to take off because everybody believes that the more is better. They want to see a multi-pronged approach from a company that's doing drug development, clinics, CRO work across the gamut. But in reality, all of those businesses are highly specialized, capital-intensive businesses that all probably need to be in their own respective businesses, not a portfolio approach. So I mean, yes, and I mean back to the partnership with NHS and with Awaken. I mean, I think that's also something that investors need to look at when looking at these companies if they're viable investments, because I don't think a lot of these companies are going to be able to go it alone. And when you look at Awaken with NHS,
Bingo.
You look at Mindset Pharma with Otsuka. You see that Numinus is cozying up to MAPS. Granted, it's not formal, but the writing's on the wall. I mean, I think that's something that investors should be looking at.
What are we looking at?
How they can be subsidizing costs as well as using partnerships to drive their business initiatives forward.
How many phase 3 trials do we know off the top of our head? Compass is in one. MAPS, obviously. Awaken's just about to start theirs. Is there any other phase 3 trials? Got to get Jake on. He's pretty good when it comes to that stuff.
Atai has one, I'm pretty sure. Doesn't Atai have one for the DMT molecule? Oh no, that's not in phase 3. Yeah, it's phase 2.
It's impressive.
No, I'm thinking I was actually going through the Atai deck the other day. The only phase 3 they have it on there, and it's Compass's. And it says in partnership with Compass.
All right. Help us out in the comment section below if we're missing anything. Be great to hear from you.
GRS. I think they were saying is in phase 3 with the 5-MeO DMT. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what Jake brought up on the Spaces.
Jake
I think it's
Smolovitz.
still phase 2, but I could be wrong.
Jake Smolovitz. See how you pronounce his last name? Is that right?
I think it's
Slomovitz.
Jake, if you're watching this right now, buddy, hey, good work. Keep it up, brother. Got to have that kid on. He's been very, very good. But getting back to those Spravato numbers, you remember earlier this year, Anthony, we had a podcast with Christian Agermeyer, and he was basically explaining that their sales or revenue team had a tough time trying to sell that drug. That appears to be over and done with if we're seeing numbers grow like this.
I mean, I think that just means it's working. I mean, I think people.
That's it, right?
It's it. I mean, if you look at their target audience and people that are using this and people that are constantly experiencing trauma, whether they're in the VA, whether they're in the armed services, whether they're active police officers. I mean, one thing that is for certain, especially when it relates to psychedelics, people that are enduring these traumas that then go through these therapies and start to see breakthroughs and start to see efficacy coming out of these ill mental states. I mean, they're going to tell everybody that they know that could also benefit from this. I mean, the network effects at the patient level, I think, is something in this industry that needs to be paid very close attention to.
Yeah.
And that's probably what you're seeing with esketamine and with Spravato. I mean, as it works and as people are coming out of the other end of these therapies, people are going to know and they're going to understand and they're going to tell people, and you're going to see people going in and trying these therapies as well. Because I mean, the only way you really see a societal stigma overcome is when people just keep talking about it and people start to buy in. And the only way that they're going to buy in is knowing someone that's close to them, that's gone through it, that's actually worked. I think that's what you're seeing.
Yeah. Got some interesting news, and I've been keeping this quiet, but I think now's the time's a good time. Next month, we don't know the actual date yet, but it's probably going to be mid-August. Us three are launching a midday market show on Benzenga's YouTube channel, and it'll be streamed live. It'll be on our YouTube channel as well, but we're going to be talking about all interesting things pertaining to the markets and how they're performing that day. It's going to be a big opportunity for us. But on that note, outside of the verticals that we're covering, what did you guys think of the latest earnings with Netflix and Tesla earlier this week?
I mean, I think that they weren't very well received. Netflix and Tesla were down respectively yesterday, pretty hard.
Netflix, their subscribers were up. How much was it quarter over quarter?
The subscriber growth was very good. I think where they fell short was in their ad supported tier. They're getting rid of the cheapest non-ad tier, and I don't think investors like to see that. And then there were a couple other dark spots on it.
Yeah. Ben, your lovely Bank of Canada in Canada raised interest rates again. What's that say for the housing market in Canada?
Did they?
Yeah, it's up to 5%. Ben, is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so. It's a lot of people are not doing well in terms of if they have variable rate mortgages. A lot of people are suffering, and it's really taking a toll on the economy. But yeah, it is what it is. I just hope, for the sake of everything, that the economy, that interest rates don't stay elevated for a long period of time, because people have been conditioned to believe that that the cycle will come down after rates get elevated for a while, that automatically the Bank of Canada or central banks are just going to decline or bringing them down because there's so much pain out there. But this is sort of a different type of dynamic that we're in play. It's not really just from a basic economic cycle. So I don't know the answer to that, but
think about the cottage market up in the Muskokas. Like, you want to talk about a rock solid real estate market that's been around for the last 30, 40 years. And there is crazy depreciation as far as cottages going on up north in the Muskokas right now. It doesn't surprise me when you're looking at the cost of some of these places. Like, it's astronomical what some of these cottages are priced at. But there's valuations of cottages down 15-20% in a lot of places up north. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, Anthony, but I know you've been there a few times. But yeah, they've definitely been hit hard.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
But I also think that people with money that are I mean, I might be very wrong on this, but I also know a lot of Canadians that are well-to-do in Ontario and in BC, and they're leaving because of public policy. They're getting out. They're going to the islands. They're going to Mexico. They're coming to Florida. I mean, that and the real estate market it makes San Francisco look cheap.
I know.
I mean, I had a buddy that bought a $4 million condo in Vancouver, and then he showed me it, and I was like, holy shit.
Not
Like,
much.
granted, the exchange rate, no, you're not getting a lot of bang for your buck. And I know that real estate in Ontario is astronomical as well. But I mean, I think that one thing people need to realize, and I'm actually just looking this up because I didn't know the real number off the top of my head, the average interest rate in the United States from 1971 to 2023, 5.42%.
Yeah.
Rates are never going back to zero.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, we're never going back to free money.
Yeah.
Do I think that they need to get back to in the 2 to 3% range? Sure, but they're probably not going to. I mean, I think rates in the 80s and 90s were anywhere between 8 and 8, 11, 12%.
Oh, and I know in Canada it was close to 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nuts. But these
cost of capital is not going down anytime soon.
Variable rates that were 1.5% right when COVID hit. I'm like, oh, this ain't good. But you can talk about, you know, the lack of inventory in a lot of places, but at the end of the day, it's just.
I mean, my neighborhood set another record last week. Like, it's crazy. The real estate in Florida. The problem is there's no supply. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, when I bought this house in September of 2020, it's already doubled. I'd love to sell this house, but I'm sitting on a mortgage at a 2.7% interest rate. And unless I'm going to go buy something in cash, I'm going to sit at a 5.9 to 6.5% interest rate, which the cost of capital there just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I'd rather stay in what I'm in right now and take the risk that maybe it goes down a little bit in price. But the problem is there's no supply. Nobody with a 3% and under mortgage, unless you're obscenely wealthy and you're just going to go buy in cash, wants to trade out of the asset. Like, the market's in complete gridlock.
It's crazy. Inventory. I've read Australia, the UK, like, this is a global thing where, like, you know, places or places that people want to move as far as the future, there's just not enough inventory anywhere.
No, my mortgage rate, if I pulled the same mortgage that I have on this house right now today, I think my monthly payment will be 40% higher.
Cheapers.
And that's just based on the rates.
How long have you been in your place, Ben?
I've been here about 11 years now. And I was just going to say that despite the interest rates going higher, it's amazing how firm the prices have been. The GTA in the Greater Toronto area, prices have come off in a lot of places, but really not all that much. I mean, in the suburbs out here in Mississauga, we're talking about it maybe went down 15%, and now it's right back at the all-time highs. And despite interest rates going up 10, 11 times. So there's just no supply, and the appetite for housing remains very much intact, and people will just get into debt and basically have no discretionary income just to buy a house. And it's amazing. Like, it really hasn't come off all that much as much as you would think.
I think the only thing that brings real estate prices down is if we have another 2008 event. Yeah. That's it. Anything short of that, just with the way the market is right now, I don't think anything's going to bring the damn prices down.
Okay. Speaking of that, and this may be a good topic to segue into, real estate. Some experts are ringing the alarm on commercial real estate, saying that it is in very, very bad shape. A lot of cities, like vacancy rates in San Francisco, for example, are still just over a third of what they were during the COVID crisis. And now it's become to a point where some of these banks can't just sit on those portfolios. Like, they are hemorrhaging money, and the values of these properties, they're going to have to mark them down on their book, and it's in a bad situation. Some people are expecting a very dire situation. I don't know if it's going to transpire.
Good friend of mine, she's redesigns office floors in high-rise buildings in Toronto, and they were saying over a 40% vacancy rate right now in downtown.
40%.
I mean, there was a tower. There's a tower on Pacific Boulevard or Pacific Avenue in San Fran, which is like prime real estate downtown. There was a tower, I'm pretty sure it traded about 2 years ago for $360 million. It was sold 3 months ago for $68 million.
Wow.
The thing is though, so all the commercial real estate, not all, but a lot of the commercial real estate paper sits on the small to mid-sized banks.
Yeah.
And the likes of JP Morgan, Goldman, Bank of America, Blackstone, they're all sitting on billions and billions and billions of dollars to just scoop this stuff up.
Well, one of our contacts, Genevieve Decter from Grid Capital, she posted on her Instagram account, this is like, what, a month ago? 47% vacancy rate in Manhattan right now. And a lot of those leases are up in the next 12 to 18 months at these new interest rates. So you're, to Anthony's point, Ben, everybody's moving to Florida. Like, honestly.
The housing market, the housing market here in the next 90 days is forecasted to still go up another 8% from where it is right now.
I agree.
If you know think what? About if I didn't have a family, I would get a Winnebago, maybe buy a Winnebago and move on Anthony Street or something like that. I would love to move to Florida in a lot of ways, but
would you cook crystal meth or no?
So about the whole Florida thing, I don't want to get into fucking climate change, because that's a whole rabbit hole that I don't want to go down. But it's really hot here right now, and a lot of the people that moved here are experiencing very uncomfortable, hot Florida.
It's like the winter here. Like, it's just wherever you go, you're probably going to have 6, 7, 8 months of good weather, and then you've got 4 or 5 months of shit.
Yeah, but here it's the reverse.
That's what I mean. It's
here, but here you've got 7 to 9 months of shit and 4 months of good weather.
You think 7 to 9 months of shit in Florida?
Yeah.
No.
Really? Well, can you compare your shit to our shit in minus 15 degree weather and
no. Granted, I would take so I'll take the heat.
Anthony, what's it like in like October, Florida?
Still hot, still mid to high 80s.
That's good. So you got basically October to
with humidity, it feels like it's in the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, I was playing golf on Sunday last week and it felt like 108.
You know where the best place to live in North America, my opinion?
Michigan?
San Diego.
I mean, yeah.
Speaking of Michigan, I'll let you guys run. I'm heading up to Torch Lake next week, so I'm off. We got a few great podcasts coming up, including the conversation with Anthony Tennyson, Melissa Lavasani. She's a lobbyist from Washington, as we said, leading a coalition for psychedelics. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we have scheduled for this week. But yeah, we got some good guests coming up. And we'll also have a highlight reel later in the week of just highlighting all of our big podcasts for the month of July, including our shooting with Terrasend, the Q3 results from Peyton Nyquist, amongst a few others. But look, psychedelic space, I'm encouraged by it. I think just the waiting game for investors today is probably the hardest part, as Tom Petty once said. But we're getting there, right?
Yep. We're marching forward.
All right, gents. Good checking in. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below. Anything we missed, anything you want to learn more of, let us know. And let's hear your feedback. What about real estate? North America, is it something that we should cover? If so, what are some of the things you want to learn? We'd love to learn more as we start to branch out into other verticals, as we tee up for a midday market show coming up next month. We'd love to hear from you. All right, gents, thanks, and have a great weekend.
Talk soon. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. What's up, everyone? So what'd you think of the interview? Are there any more questions you want us to ask? Then leave a comment below on information that you want to learn more of. Make sure to share this video with your network and smash that like button. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel, because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.